Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. Okay, so I'm back playing with my pearlescent paints. All of these paints are by Amsterdam and I've mixed them with Floetrol, 1 part paint to 3 parts Floetrol and a dash of water. And I'm using one of my biggest canvases that I've used for the pearlescent pours. This is a 40 by 20 inch and I've already painted the background with lamp black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to puddle pour first of all onto the canvas. So I'm going to take one colour at a time, puddle pour the paints onto the black canvas. And the pearlescent paints really need a dark background, preferably black, to work. So if I was to just leave this white, then the pearlescent paints would not react, because what needs to happen is the light needs to shine on the black canvas and bounce off of a black background through the transparent colours of the pearlescent paints to create those colours that you see. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking my paints one at a time and paddling them on the canvas. We really don't know how this is going to react. I've obviously got an idea of the colours and all the colours are listed in the description below. But the first job is really to puddle pour the paints onto the canvas and then we'll go through to the next process. I do love working on larger canvases, but you know what? I think I'm going to struggle a little bit tilting this one out. So apologies if some of your view is not a full view of the full canvas. So I'm just going to finish off now puddling the paints, and then I'm going to take some black paint, which I've mixed with Floetrol and a dash of water, 1 part paint to 3 parts pouring medium, and I'm going to take that black paint and add it to the puddles that you can see. So I'm just adding that black now. That's going to help with the flow of the paint, and it's also going to work with the pearlescent colours. Although I've already got a painted black background, I really need the fluid paint as well to react with these paints to work and make those colours really shine and pop through. Okay, so I think that's all my colours down. I'm literally going to take a palette knife and I'm just going to swipe some of those colours over the black that I've already laid down. And you'll be able to see how some of those paints already react because they're being mixed with the black paint that I've layered down already. So this is just a dry palette knife. There's no cell activator on this at the moment. I'm literally just taking my palette knife and mixing some of those colours up, infusing them together and mixing it through the black that I've already laid down. I just want to mix some of those colours up a little bit more. So I'm literally going to take my palette knife and do some swirls all the way through this design, making sure that I go through the puddles that I've layered that look white but are actually the pearlescent colours, and also through the black paint that you can see already on the canvas. There's no routine to this, I'm literally just adding swirls all the way across the design. Okay, so let me take you in for a little close-up just so you can see what I can see. So this is the pattern that's been created on the canvas itself. I'm going to swipe in a minute with some Australian Floetrol mixed with titanium white just to create some lacing across this piece. But as you can see, that's the swirls that we've added. So I'm just going to take my palette knife now and I'm adding the cell activator. This is what's going to create the lacing, and this is 3 parts Australian Floetrol and 1 part titanium white paint by Amsterdam. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe across this design in a few areas. I'm going to place my palette knife on top of the paint, allow the paint to connect with the paint on the canvas, and I'll let it glide across the top. I'm not going to apply too much pressure, but I'm going to apply enough pressure to allow the paint to move across the canvas connected with the palette knife. So remember, don't press too hard. Make sure you've got good coverage on your palette knife before you put your palette knife onto the canvas, and then gently lay the palette knife on top of the paint that's already there and drag it and glide it across your design. I think I've added enough of the swipe now, so I'm just going to take my torch to remove any air bubbles that have appeared. That's because I've mixed my paints up, and also to encourage any other cell or lacing activation from that mixture that I've just swiped with. I'll give you a close-up now of what the surface should look like. So I've got some blocks of colour. You can see how those pearlescent paints are already reacting with the black paint that's already down. And you can see some of that lacing all the way across that design. So we've got some lines, some lacing and some block colour. And now the fun part. I've got my gloves on, and this is about tilting your design out, tilting your creation to ensure that the paint fully covers the canvas surface area. So I'm literally just going to tilt the paint, get a feel for where the weight of the paint is, and look at each kind of side as I go. I'm not going to rush this, but I'm going to tilt and work one side at a time, walking the paint by tilting the canvas back and forth, allowing that paint to travel over the sides, down the edges, and then I'll move it back on itself. That's so I can get good coverage across this canvas. And apologies if you can't see some of the movement as I do it. This is a large 40 by 20 inch canvas, so yeah, bear with me, but you'll get the gist of how I work and move the paint from side to side using one edge at a time. And when you're looking at your composition and looking at the design that you're creating on your canvas, it's really about personal taste. It's deciding how much of that design you want as a focal point in the middle of your canvas. So I want to create some movement, and I really want to keep some of that lacing and block colour. I almost want the movement to work in one direction. So I'm happy to tilt the canvas in one direction, move the paint back on itself to allow me to push the paint off in other directions too. So don't be in a rush when you're tilting. Allow yourself some time to place the canvas back on its stand and have a real good look at where that design is forming. So don't rush this process, just take your time and you'll get to know what parts you want to push off your canvas and the parts that you really want to keep because that's the most interesting part to you. So once the canvas is fully stretched and the design goes from one end to the other, from side to side, you can then remove all your drips from your edges and take a look to see if you're happy with that design. I'm just going to do a few tweaks now, and then what I'll do is I'll take you in for a closer look of the wet version. So here we go. This is the final result. I think I'm really happy with how this has turned out, but I'm not going to truly see how this turns out until all this paint is dry, because the pearlescent paints need to do their magic and they'll transform in colour as it dries. So yeah, let me leave this now. I'm going to take you in for a closer look of this wet version, show you some of those details because it's actually quite mesmerising on some of the patterns how it's turned out. I'll let this dry and then I will take you in for a dry look version, and I can guarantee it's going to be a wow moment because guys, I reckon this is going to be the best piece that I've done. I can't wait for you to see it. Okay, so that's the wet version. Are you ready to see the dry version? I'm going to take you in now so you can see how this piece has dried. And 3, 2, 1. There we go. What do you think? I really love it. And yeah, I'm having so much fun experimenting with the pearlescent paints. I'm really enjoying how the designs turn out. You know, it's a big surprise to me as well because there's only so much you can predict with these paints, because as they dry, that's when they transform and really that's where the magic happens. That's when they really show their true colours. The depth and the different movement in this piece I'm really enjoying because we've got that balance of block colour, some of the lacing and some of the lines. I'm going to leave you now with some further details so you can see some of the further details of this piece. But I also want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've had fun with me. And if you're trying these pearlescent paints, then let me know how you get on. Tag me in your posts because I'd love to see the results and the creations that you produce too. I really hope I get to see you again in the next video. Let me know what other designs you'd like me to try, what other techniques you'd like me to do using the pearlescent paints. But until next time, take care and I'll see you again soon. Bye everyone.